Fellas, we're only week 2 into fight nights after UFC 299. I had to drag myself to watch Tuivasa versus Tabora. And now that we've got Ribas versus Namajunas, it's kind of just... It's reminded me that women's MMA it's just horrible. And I understand the fight hasn't even happened yet at the time of recording this, so maybe it's going to go out there and be one of the best fights ever. But after watching Namajunas' recent performances, especially the fight with Carla Esparza, which was the worst fight in UFC history, I haven't got high expectations. And to be completely honest with you, I couldn't care less about the fight. I don't care who wins. And that's just because of women's MMA. I'm not saying they're untalented. I'm just saying I couldn't care less. Not even just the fight nights or the fights that aren't for a belt. Just women's MMA in general. Even the title picture of women's MMA is horrible. I mean, we had the last female title fight we had at UFC 297 with Pennington becoming a champion against Silva. That was a horrific title fight. There was no hype for it whatsoever. Nobody wanted that to be the co-main event. It kind of ruined the card. It was a boring fight, and I feel like everyone has just forgotten that Pennington is a champion. When it comes to men's MMA, everyone knows every champion, and everyone, like, maybe you might not care about the flyweight division, or there might be divisions that you prioritize over others, but does anyone actually care who's the champion of the women's bantamweight division? I wouldn't care. I couldn't care less if it's Pennington or Silva or Pena. I couldn't care. And that's just women's MMA in a nutshell. I couldn't care less who wins. Even with Rose Namajunas versus Carla Esparza a few years ago, I know I'm kind of, nitpicking fights here, but even that fight, the worst fight in UFC history, happened to be a female title fight as well. The only exception I've got is Zhang Weili. She's going to be fighting at UFC 300, and I'm glad out of all the female champions, they've chosen Zhang Weili to fight at UFC 300, because I don't mind Zhang Weili. I think she's an entertaining fighter. I think she's got the personality to go with it as well. She's not just a standard boring female MMA fighter that when it comes to personality. I feel like she's got personality, and her fight style's entertaining. I enjoyed watching her fight Lemos and all the recent fights, especially the fight with Carla Esparza where she went out there and annihilated her. So overall, I think Zhang Weili's probably my only exception. I don't mind watching her fight, and to be honest, I'm quite excited to watch her fight Yang Xiaonan at UFC 300. I'm not as excited, obviously, as like the Gaethje Holloway level, but for a female MMA fighter, I think Zhang Weili's the only one that can kind of get away with this. But every other fighter, even in the title picture, I guess Grasso's alright, Shevchenko's alright. I'm kind of glad that Nunes has gone, because now they're not going to be handing out main events for pay-per-views when it comes to female fights, and that's another thing I should rant about. Women shouldn't have ever been a main event for a pay-per-view. And I know it's been a while. The last female main event we had was UFC 289, which was 10 pay-per-views ago. But the fact that that was actually a reoccurring theme when Amanda Nunes was champion was absolutely horrible. I feel like they should never main event for a pay-per-view. Even co-main eventing it for a pay-per-view, I have a problem with. You know what? I wouldn't mind, and this is the solution I've got. I wouldn't mind if female title fights... Well, I guess if there's maybe 2 men's title fights on the card, maybe the featured fight of the night can be a female title fight. Like maybe Pennington can be on like the featured fight of a pay-per-view of 2 other men headlining it. But I wouldn't mind if female title fights were like the main event for a fight night. I know they've done that a few times. And I wouldn't mind that. I think that's a good thing, because obviously fight nights, they're not obviously on the same standard of pay-per-views. And if we're having a title fight on a fight night, let's stick a female fight on there. Let's have Pennington on the main event of a fight night. Why not? Let's have Grasso. I know they did that with Grasso versus Shevchenko. So let's have a fight like that on the main event of a fight night. I wouldn't mind if that's how they use fight nights. But when the fight night main events is Namajunas versus Ribas, I genuinely couldn't care. We've got one next week as well with Blankfield fighting against Furot, and to be honest, I will admit that's actually quite an interesting fight, because it is going to be practically the #1 contender fight. Obviously, Furot's coming off a good win over Namajunas, and Blankfield's got a good win under her books as well. She's looked great in her last few, so both of them are coming off good wins, and I think it's going to be a very technical fight, and the winner will fight for the belt next. So I'm not too much of a hater of that matchup. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm extremely excited for it, but even that fight night, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm excited for that fight night. So overall, I just think women's MMA, especially the title picture, out of like 5 fighters, I couldn't really care about women's MMA. If you're watching a fight night card or a pay-per-view card and it's female fighting outside of the top 5, I just couldn't care. There's just no big draws in female MMA in every single men's division. Maybe not flyweight, but even in flyweight there's a few up-and-comers. But in practically every single men's division, there's at least a few draws in every weight class. A few big pay-per-view stars, a few fighters that, get you interested when they're fighting. And it doesn't even have to be in the top 5. It can literally, some of them can even be unranked. Paddy Pimblett, I'd say he's a fairly big draw in the lightweight division. He's not even ranked. He's not even like the highest skill in one of the most competitive divisions in the UFC. there's no big draws in female MMA. The only one I can remember in recent time is like Ronda Rousey a few years ago. Outside of her, there's genuinely no big draws. There's a few popular fighters. I guess Amanda Nunes was quite popular. Valentina Shevchenko, Zhang Weili, but they're not even like they're popular to UFC fans. Outside of the UFC audience, no one knows who they are. So there's no big draws to rule them in for casuals. Why would any casual fan choose to watch female fight nights when there's zero big draws? I don't understand. Even last week, Chelsea Chandler running away from Nunes in the prelims. That was just a perfect example of female MMA for you there. You know, Chelsea Chandler sprinted away from Nunes in that fight night, and yeah, it just wasn't a good fight to watch. Anyway, considering we've got 2 female fight nights coming up, I thought I'd, you know, kill 2 birds with 1 stone and predict both of them, you know, right now. Starting off with tonight, Namajunas versus Ribas. I'm going with Namajunas. Ribas just hasn't shown me anything to convince me that she beats someone like Namajunas. I still think Namajunas can be thrown back in the title picture. I understand her most recent fights haven't been the most impressive. In the rematch against Zhang Weili, she barely won that fight. Then she goes out there, has the most boring fight in UFC history against Carla Esparza, and then obviously in the last fight loses pretty comfortably to Furot in the, I think it was the Gorn versus Spivak card, which wasn't that long ago. So, yeah, Namajunas, I still think she's very technical though. I think she's one of the more high-class female fighters in the roster, and I still think she's got what it takes to be thrown back in the strawweight title picture. So I'm going with Amanda, I keep saying Amanda Nunes. I'm going with Rose Namajunas to win this one. Ribas, maybe she could pull it off. I can see her, you know, maybe being able to catch Namajunas, but I just think there's too many ways for Namajunas to win. And I think she's got everything. She's shown that she's very technical in the past. She's got the great striking. So I'm going with Namajunas to win this one. I think she's going to pick her apart. And unless Ribas catches her with something big or manages to, you know, make it a boring fight, make it ugly with Namajunas, which I don't think she's going to do, I'm going Namajunas to win this one by decision. And then next week, Blankfield versus Furot. That's a fight that I'm actually somewhat interested in. I'm not super interested in it. I'm not saying it should be a fight night main event, but considering it's like a #1 contender fight, and they've both looked really good in their last few, I think that's probably one of the better female fights we've got. But my pick, I'm going with Blankfield to win that one. It's going to be a very interesting fight overall. They're both very well-rounded. Blankfield, obviously, she's got great grappling, but her striking's definitely improved as well. I feel like it improves nearly every fight, but obviously she's known for having great grappling, great judo, and amazing submissions. And then Furot, she's just really well-rounded. She's got great striking, and she's able to make it a fight like she did with Namajunas, which I don't think anyone really expected to beat Namajunas. But I'm going with Blankfield to win this one. I think she's going to get, she arguably deserves a title. I mean, they both arguably deserve a title shot because they're both coming off impressive wins, but it's going to be a scrap. It's going to be actually quite an interesting fight in my opinion, even though I'm not, you know, super excited for it. But yeah, I'll go Blankfield to win this one by decision. I think she's going to use offensive grappling to a decent extent, but at the same time, I don't know if Erin Blankfield's going to be able to last the 5 rounds. She did have you know, quite some stamina issues in her last fight, so I'm not sure she's going to be able to last 5 rounds, but I'll say that she's able to, you know, get her out there. I'm going to go with Blankfield. I'm going to go with submission, actually. I'm going to go submission by Blankfield. I think she's going to be able to pull off a submission. She's really impressed me with her grappling recently. I'm going Blankfield by submission. But yeah, that's my picks for the next 2 female fight nights. Again, I'm kind of just getting them out of the way because I guess the Blankfield versus Furot fight's, you know, quite interesting, but Namajunas versus Ribas, I just couldn't care. Let me know your thoughts on female MMA. Let me know your predictions for those specific fights and who you think wins. But yeah, that's my rant on females, well, women's MMA in general. I just have no interest in watching the fight nights. I have very little interest in the title picture. I couldn't care less that Pennington's a champion. Yeah, that's my rant about female MMA. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching.